Hey there, this is Jitsy, and this is the Crush Chronicles, a podcast about crushes and how they affect our lives as humans. So grab your coffee or wine, pull out your old diaries, and settle in for today's interview and discussion. I don't know when it started, how it started. What I know is I'm a sucker for adorable, geeky guys. The afternoon was warm and sunny, transitioning the Texas heat from spring into summer and thickening the familiar smell of the theater. Old wood, dusty draperies, and that distinct scent of old schools. A scent that is recognizable immediately upon crossing the threshold, but the combination of notes that invades the nostrils always a mystery of infinite combinations. I settled into position with my finger just triggering the camera. Robbie appeared from backstage, unknowingly wandering into my shot of Alan, which was going to be stunning. Exasperated, and without really thinking about what I was saying, camera dropped to my side and head thrown back, I exclaimed, "Robbie, you ruin everything!" My voice reverberated off the walls, smacking back at us from the stage. It was a guttural yell, straight from the diaphragm. Robbie halted upstage right, his slender frame looking around with bewilderment, as if the open air of the stage would disclose a logical reason this chick was yelling at him. This is episode 1 of the Crush Chronicles podcast, and it is my honor to introduce my very first guest ever, Simone.
Hello.
Welcome.
Thank you.
So I've been a guest on other people's podcasts before, but I have never sat on this side of the podcast table. So it's very special to be sharing the first episode with you. I'm glad you're here.
I'm honored to be here, Rachel. Thank you.
Okay, so before we start, we're going to have you share a little bit about yourself.
Okay, what would you like to know?
Whatever you would like to share. It could be like where you're from, where you grew up, your age, just anything to help us get to know you a little bit better.
Yeah, sounds good. So I am a mom of one. I'm 51, and I'm an immigrant. I came to the States from Iran in 83. Pretty much grew up in Orange County since then, lived in Santa Barbara for a little bit, and been very fortunate to establish our life here in Orange County and got a nice job and doing well.
Yay, that's awesome. Okay, we're going to do a quick icebreaker. So who is a current celebrity or fictional crush you have, or one that you had in your childhood?
Brad Pitt.
Oh, yes. Is there like a specific movie that did it for you, or was it just seeing him on TV?
It was just, that's a good question. I can't remember the first movie, but definitely anything he's in, I'll watch.
Yeah.
just to watch him.
He is just like a fun actor, just
Yes.
anyway. I didn't really start appreciating him until I saw Ocean's 11. I also remember when I was younger, my mom and my aunt were all about him in The Legend of the Fall.
That's exactly the movie, I think.
Really? Yeah. I feel like that might have done it for a lot of women. When I was younger, I had a crush on Jitsawat. I feel like I was not the only one. So it's okay. She's motioning to me that she does not know who that is, and that's totally fine. So if you ever saw Casper with Christina Ricci, he was the love interest in that. Now and Then also... Wait, was he in Now and Then? I think he was. He was in Final Destination, and that's kind of like the last thing I remember him being in. But he was just kind of like your basic white blonde kid.
Yeah, I tend to gravitate towards the blonde hair, blue-eyed.
Yeah.
It's my mojo.
Yeah. Okay, so we're going to get into it. Before attending today, you read part 1 of The Story of Robbie. So we're going to have a discussion that's inspired by that.
Okay.
All right, so the very first line of Robbie states how I am, quote, a sucker for adorable, geeky guys. While I'm not 100% convinced that we have, or maybe even should have, types, what do you think your type might be, even though you kind of said, or what was it when you were in high school?
That's a great question. I think I've always been more stimulated by someone's intellect than their looks. So while the looks will turn my head, It's what's between their ears that really, captures me, and it makes my heart skip a beat. So I really resonated with that part of the story. While I never thought about it the geeky type, it's really what their interests are, because I love to learn, and I love to learn from others, whether it's a crush or friends, and I am very stimulated by that.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, I like that, you didn't really focus on looks because, I mean, looks are something that does happen. Like, we see people first before we speak to them. But yeah, I mean, that was kind of what really, turned me on to Robbie. Like, yeah, he was cute, but he was really smart. And I really admired that. Okay, so after reading the beginning of Robbie's story, because Robbie's story is in two parts and you read part one, what parts of that story stuck out to or resonated with you the most, and why?
Overall, I like the part of the story, and I like how she talks about her interest, and how she tries to make the connection with him. It's such a, when we're at that age, we're driven by so many things, our hormones and everything. And it just took me back to my own high school years. A little bit different. I was being an immigrant. It wasn't quite the same. But what stood out was just how she was so aware of her own actions and reactions towards him. So it was interesting.
That's interesting. Even though it was me and I wrote it, I didn't pick up on, the interest being kind of woven in, and, how I was trying to relate that with him. But yeah, I like that. Thanks for bringing that up. Okay, so the encapsulating moment I had with Robbie is what I believe was completely brought on by word vomit, which is a term I have taken from Mean Girls. So what word vomiting moments have you had with a crush, or just in life in general? Doesn't have to be with a crush.
Gosh, that's such a great question. I don't know. It's interesting because I feel like I'm such an emotional person, in the sense that I sometimes more often than not have no filter. So honestly, that reaction of Robbie, you ruined the shot, and saying it and saying, why did that come out of all the things? It's like, I feel like I've had so many of those types of moments, where my reaction didn't match really how I felt inside. So I can't say that one really stands out, because I'm just that way reactive. So yeah, but I really enjoyed that, because it helped me reflect on my own experiences.
Yeah, so it wasn't like any one moment, but when that happened, when you were reading, you were like,
yeah,
oh yeah, I've been there and done that.
Totally. Yeah, totally.
I do that all the time.
Yeah, it was just like, oh my gosh, I don't have one moment. I probably have many.
And you haven't seen Mean Girls before, right?
I have not.
Okay, we might have to do a movie night or something.
For sure.
But let's see, have you ever heard of that part, being referenced anywhere, the word vomiting?
I've heard word vomiting, but I never knew it came from that movie.
Yeah. Okay. That's where I got it from. I'm assuming that's where everybody got it from. Okay. But going on with that concept, word vomiting really comes when we don't mean to say something, but it spills out anyway. Like you were saying, you'll say something, but even though it doesn't really match how you feel inside. Mm-hmm. This is seen as bad or embarrassing sometimes, just like in the story. Teenage me was embarrassed, but immediately embarrassed, why did I say that? So how do you think we can prevent word vomiting, especially around crushes or just people we admire?
Yeah, that's such a hard question for me to answer, because as I'm listening to you, I'm suddenly remembering this one guy that I did have a total crush on. He was incredibly intelligent, confident, good looking. He had it all. And I didn't realize he may have even had any interest in me, but when I did find out, I would just be stupid around him. It was like my brain was completely, it shut me down. Like, he made me stupid. So I don't really know that I'm the person to give advice on how to avoid that. I guess so. Find someone who loves you and doesn't make you feel stupid, and move forward. But yeah, that was, and he would like literally say, he goes, I have to shut down like 95% of my brain around other people. Later, I realized how arrogant that was. But anyway, nonetheless, he was not hard on the eyes, so I enjoyed it.
No, I mean, that's still good advice. Like, that's part of, the journey of having crushes, the journey of dating, is you find somebody that you can be comfortable around, and, you eventually don't, get, because it is a natural reaction. You get flustered around someone. The words just kind of spill out, like, because you're just so nervous, you can't really, your brain's not connecting to your mouth in the right way. But yeah, that's kind of the point of why we date, and look for all these different people that might be a good match for us to feel comfortable and safe with.
That's exactly right. I think honestly though, like, through to your point about why we date, is I think the more we date and go through these experiences, the more we get to know ourselves. And the more we get to know ourselves is when we connect the brain and the mind and the heart, so that when you do meet someone that makes your heart skip a beat, you're a little bit more in control of those experiences. I'm not sure if there's really a remedy for dealing with it at first. You just have to go through it. You're going to have those moments where you feel flustered, but that's the beauty of it.
Yeah, no, that's so beautifully said, because yeah, it's a universal experience. There's no magic way to avoid it. It's kind of like a rite of passage.
Exactly.
Yeah, and whether it's a crush or just somebody like maybe you look up to, like maybe when you go to college and it's like a professor you always wanted to learn under, mm-hmm. or somebody that you meet across your work path or something. You're gonna have those moments, but then but I do agree a lot that it's a lot about learning about yourself.
It is. That's a big part of it. And I read once that the person that does the most talking is the first to fall in love. So maybe it's a good thing to just feel nervous and keep quiet. Let the other person fall in love first.
That's interesting. Where did you read that? Do you remember?
It was some Psychology Today publication that I subscribe to. I love it. It's an easy read, and it was in that. And that's why they say a lot of people in therapy, like women, mm-hmm. Fall in love with their therapist, because all they're doing is listening, or there's that likelihood,
Interesting.
We like to be listened to.
Yes, we do.
Yeah.
Not that any men are probably going to listen to this, but if you happen to, we like to be listened to. Just shut up and listen, okay?
Right.
So towards the end of the story, I state that I regret not changing Robbie's quote from Robert Burns to myself. I think this was because at the time, I did not think I was worthy enough to be featured like this, let alone by someone I admired. Do you think this is common in most young women? And if so, how do you think it affects the young women who think of themselves as unworthy of anyone's attention or recognition?
God, I really love that question. I think so many of us struggle with worthiness, females. And, in fact, I sat through, there was a guest speaker at our company, and she was talking about we diminish our power with the words that we use, like saying sorry all the time, and it was so important. And whether you're young or older, I think starting in as young as you can is to find your worth and value, and that's easier said than done. But I think it's so important to know your worth and value and what you bring to the table, because I think it helps all the decisions that you end up making all the way into adulthood. How do you go about it? I don't know. Because I think I'm still trying to figure that out myself. But I'm here to say at 51, the beauty of it is the older you get, the more in touch with yourself you become. And I guess maybe knowing yourself is a part of that, understanding your value, right? What you bring to the table. And so the older you get, the better it gets.
That was so well said.
Thank
I
you.
love it. So a couple of things that stuck out to me is how you said you saw the speaker that said that we use words that can diminish our power, which I think that was very wonderfully said. And that's something that I try. I have two daughters. That's something that I try to tell them all the time. Like they, will get frustrated and be like, oh, I'm so stupid. And, we've all said that. We've grown up saying it. But I've also learned that what you say to yourself, probably more importantly than what others say to you, it really sticks and you begin to believe it. And I have been trying to teach them that for years. Of course, it's still a struggle because, even though I'm their mom, they're not going to listen to me all the time.
Yeah.
But same thing when we, tell ourselves that we need to lose weight or, just really not accepting ourselves the way that we are. What we say to ourselves really sticks. And I also love to because women do apologize a lot. We constantly say sorry. And part of that is because we're just, considerate and, typically more maternal, not always, but typically are. We don't want to, when we overdo it, we don't want to do it to where we're like, oh, sorry, I exist and take up space. Because that's what we kind of do when we overdo it, because we deserve to exist in this space just as much as anybody else, and we kind of have to recognize that. And then the other thing that it reminded me of is, I don't know if you've ever watched Agent Carter.
No.
Okay, well, I just recently was rewatching it, and I was reminded of one of my favorite lines of hers. So Agent Carter, she's from the Marvel Universe. You saw Captain America? No? Okay. So she was basically Captain America's love interest. And Agent Carter takes place after the first Captain America movie, and she's the only woman in a secret agent office, and of course they're just having her get coffee and or do the lunch orders. They're really not taking her seriously, even though she's really a kick-ass agent. And the boss just kind of like walks all over her, and one of her coworkers is like, how are you okay with this? Like, you should say something. And she was like, I already know my value. What anybody else's opinion doesn't matter. And I was just like, oh, slam dunk. So that's one of my favorite lines from a very strong character. So yeah, that's kind of what it reminded me of.
That's a really important point, because having I'm Middle Eastern, and I love the traditions and principles I've been raised with. Women, you take care of your house, and that's a source of pride. There's nothing to be ashamed of. It doesn't diminish your power. It doesn't make you weak. And to provide and serve someone there's nothing wrong with it.
I actually think it makes us a little bit more powerful.
It does, right? I think that, I own it and I love it. And I love what you shared, because it's when you know who you are, kind of like when you know what the truth is, it doesn't matter what anyone else says. It's like, someone can make something up. I know what the truth is. That was kind of my mantra, because growing up was a little bit hard, with kids in school, and they would say things, and I had to just be like, it can't matter, because I know what the truth is. And if someone else wants to do X, Y, Z, that's on them. And the same with your value, right? You know what your worth is. If somebody wants you to do something, it's how you see it. It's where your optics are.
Yeah, because it's your life, your body. It's up to you. You're the one that has to live with yourself. They don't. And exactly. if they're going to bring, any negative things to it, you don't need them.
Nope, that's exactly right.
I know that's also easier said than done, but, that's kind of like what it is. Okay, so moving on, you and I both have daughters. What do you want for your child as she experiences the ups and downs, the highs and heartbreaks of crushes?
Wow. That is something that recently has been kind of crossing my mind, because she's 12, and I'm wondering, like, how is she going to deal with it? How am I going to help her deal with it? I don't know that I really have the right answer. I tend to be more of a, when the situation arises, kind of tap into the moment and find the best answer I can give her, because really they're all so different, right? But we all know what the universal answer is. You grow from these. Every challenge in life, whether it's a heartbreak or something terrible that happens, or unforeseen, I should say, not terrible. We grow from those, right? And so I think each heartbreak helps us understand what we don't want. And just like up until now, for friendships that have been unsavory, I'm like, you know what, just look at it this way. Now you know what you don't want in a friendship, right? And so for the guys that, or hopefully there's not very many, but even if there is, it's okay, because I've learned, I've looked back at my relationships that were not good and said, I've almost sent them a thank you note saying thank you, because now I know what I don't want and you've helped me. And so I believe that you don't know good till you've had bad, and vice versa. Sometimes when everything's good, you have no idea. And we kind of tend to take that for granted too, right? If you're with someone wonderful. I've been certainly in a relationship where afterwards I realized, like, wow, he was actually like a wonderful guy, right? Mm-hmm. So I think it's just part of the journey, and what matters is, again, going back to knowing her worth, and it doesn't define her. You move on, you grow.
Yeah, no, I think that's great, because it's definitely, again, it's universal. Everybody's gonna have to do it. We know our girls are gonna have to go through it. Yeah. They're like right on the precipice. Like, if they haven't had crushes already, they're definitely going to. Yeah. And like for me, I really just hope that, my daughter feels safe enough to just talk to me if she needs to, which I don't know if there's ever going to be a way to hone this in on anyone, especially at the adolescent age, but that it's not the end of the world when it doesn't work out. Yeah. And I don't know if that's ever possible to teach them in the moment, because, looking back on when I had crushes, it was just devastating. If, he doesn't pay attention to you, doesn't know you exist, has a girlfriend, ends up dating someone else, goes to the dance with someone else, whatever it may be, you're just like, oh my God, my life is over. Nothing else matters, because all of my energy was about this person, and now this person just like, is out of the picture, and like, what am I supposed to do now?
Right.
So I just, I would like for, her to know that, but I do think that's something that she's going to have to figure out on her own. No matter how much I could tell her, she's not going to probably believe it until she's on the other end of having gone through it, which is hard, because, when you look at your kids, you don't want them to go through pain, but they have to, because it's a part of life. So yeah, I think that's great. I agree with you. I agree with you a lot. Do you think that you would have a different view if you had a son as opposed to a daughter, or how that would change like any perspectives?
Well, that's a great question. My initial reaction to say yes. I feel like I would be sitting on a different side, but then I also feel like in today's world, gender roles are so different, right? What's right is right and what's wrong is wrong. It doesn't matter if you're male or female, right? I think he can have his heart broken just the same way as a girl could have her heart broken, right? And so when I look at it that way, then no, it's the same. You still have to go through it. The wrinkles in our life are what shapes us and what makes us and all those things. So, but it's hard. It's easy to say that now because I'm not going through it. But, we mentioned that you hope that, your daughter would come and talk to you about it. Mm-hmm. I think that's the biggest part, right?
Yes.
Because I think it would be harder for me if she withheld that and didn't trust to talk to me or didn't feel like talking to me. That's even harder because you see them suffering. You don't know what it is to even offer anything. Fortunately for me, still to this day, she does communicate a lot of things with me, and I hope that remains. I don't know, but yeah, you got to go through it. We all did.
Yep. Yeah, and you're better for it.
Like you said, you learn. Boot camp, right?
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Have you thought about yet? Because I have mentioned this with my husband, and he was just like, no. And granted, I did this like a year ago, so my daughter was like 11-ish, maybe 10 or 11-ish when I brought it up. But I was like, well, when are we, what rules are we going to have around dating? And he was like, nope, not that, too young. I'm not thinking about it right now. Because looking back when I'm writing these stories about my youth and, interacting with all of these guys, I realized I didn't really have rules about dating. I don't know if it's because, my parents just thought that like it wasn't going to happen or that it didn't need to be talked about, because I was just a very like already quiet, shy girl, and I moved around so much it was hard enough for me to like keep friends because of that. And looking back on it, I was like, that's kind of important, and I feel like we should know ahead of time, instead of just like, one day my daughter comes home and is like, oh, I've got a boyfriend, and she's like 13, and we're like, whoa, were we okay with this? Because we weren't ready. So yeah, have you guys thought about that at all?
That's really interesting. No, we haven't. And listening to what you just talked about, I don't know how I'd feel about setting a rule, right? Because if it hasn't happened, then I don't want to bring it to the forefront and create some rule around it. I think that if and when she does meet someone that, she has feelings for and they're dating, then I think would be the right time to sit down and talk to her about the importance of preserving herself and her identity, and the value of herself, and just those are so important to me. And that's how my parents did it with me. It wasn't, there was a time where they're like, look, you're gonna have interest in guys, and but you gotta have to be careful, and and just they had that conversation with me. So but the rules though of going out were pretty, it didn't, boy or girl didn't matter. It was, you got to be home by 10. So that was, and they had to know where I'm going.
And I did have curfews too. Mm-hmm. When I was younger, I feel like my parents were a little bit more flexible, only because they had to be, because I'm speaking specifically when I was in high school, like sophomore through senior year. I would go to like school dances and they would run late, and then a lot of times we would be hungry and they would be like, okay, you can go to IHOP, but then you have to be home by midnight. Or like I would go to a lot of like the punk shows and stuff, and they would end late and they're like, okay, you have to be home by 1. Sometimes they would be asleep, but I have a feeling my mom at least was kind of doing a sleeping with one eye open. Like she probably wasn't fully asleep until she heard me come in and like the door was shut. But I wasn't on that side of that I am now, but yeah. I was on the kids side, and I was just like, ooh, I have a late curfew, that's awesome. But yeah, I can imagine if we were in an unfamiliar place, it would be different. But as clearly stated many times, I was very active in high school, so I had a lot of stuff that kind of required me to stay out a little bit later. Final question. If you were to write your own story, which crush in your life would you write about and why?
Oh my gosh. I don't know. I don't know that a crush actually stands out for me. One to even write about. They've all been their own unique experiences. Unfortunately, I fall short on this question.
Would you write about all of them instead of just one?
Probably, yeah, because I am who I am because of all these relationships. Right. I can't say that I actually had a crush on someone that I wasn't with. I would meet someone and work out and have a relationship. But yeah, I mean, I could name all of them, and I'd probably write about them. We'll probably learn a lot about myself too in the process, right? Yeah. That might be a project.
I can tell you from experience that's kind of what happens a lot too. Yeah, so how long do you think that book would be if you had to...
Ooh. Well, let's see. It'd span 30 years, so maybe even 35 years. So, yeah, maybe 11 chapters.
That's pretty good.
Not to say there was 11 of them, but
oh yeah. Hey, I probably have more than 11. The number is not a big deal. So yeah. So before you go, is there any platform or anything you would like to share with listeners where they can find you if you'd like them to follow, or?
Nope, I don't have any platform, but I just want to remind the audience to be brave and stay strong.
Awesome. I love that. Thank you. Thank you for sharing everything today.
Thank you,
and yeah, this was fun.
Thank you. It was a lot of fun. I enjoyed it.
Hey, you. Yeah, you. Thank you so much for listening. It means the world to me. If you like this episode and would like to hear another, please make sure you subscribe so you don't miss the next one. If you have some extra time, check out my Substack at jitsy.substack.com. The link will be in the show notes. That's where you can check out my memoir series that inspired this very podcast. And you can take a look at the real life stories and experiences that inspired the topics that are discussed in each episode. If you'd like to support the show and keep future episodes coming, you can buy me a coffee. It helps fuel the writing fire. The Crush Chronicles is 100% produced by me, Rachel Jitsawat. The music is by Musictown, and the sound effects are by Pixabay. Thanks again for listening, and until next time, keep crushing it, because no one can crush it like you can.